Welcome to Project M Squared, Mentoring Young Mathematicians, a primary mathematics program published by Kendall Hunt Publishing Company. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Valerie Josie. I have 31 years in the public school system, 21 years as an elementary classroom teacher. After that, I served in the curriculum office as a math coach, as the professional development school facilitator, working with both first-year teachers and pre-service teachers, and as the elementary math coordinator. I began working with Mentoring Young Mathematicians in 2008 when I served as the professional development coordinator, supervising teachers who were field testing Project M Squared units. This continued through 2011 as we field tested kindergarten, grade 1, and grade 2 units. In 2011, I retired from the public school system in the state of Texas. Since then, I have worked as an elementary math consultant, sharing what I have learned about teaching math in a program that includes all of the best practices and makes math something real and fun for both children and teacher. The agenda for our session today is to discuss the goals of Project M Squared, to identify the Project M Squared units, to look at the language arts component, a very rich component in Project M Squared, to look at the program components, what comes in each unit to support the mathematics and the teaching, to look at unit features of the books, and to end by walking through a Project M Squared lesson. Let's look at a video about Project M Squared's research results and awards.
The Project M Squared units are based on research and best practices across math, gifted, and early childhood education. Teachers were our partners in research from the onset.
We both piloted and field tested the units across several years and in 4 states. We had schools and children in Connecticut, Kentucky, South Carolina, and Texas. And we also had a comparison group of students from the same schools, which meant that the demographics were the same, as well as we made sure that they were of likability. And we were thrilled with the results. Our students, our Project M Squared students, outperformed the comparison group from almost 1 year to almost 3 years in terms of grade level equivalent.
The National Association for Gifted Children has recognized the high quality of the units through its annual Distinguished Curriculum Award.
We wanted to write advanced units for young students that would challenge them and get them thinking in depth about complex concepts. We really felt that young children in typical classrooms weren't doing nearly as much as they could. And we also wanted them to love mathematics. And if you go into one of our Project M Squared classrooms, you will see that joy in learning, as well as the rich math discussions and the high-level thinking that our students can do.
As teachers, math specialists, principals, and unit authors attest, the units have had a positive impact beyond achievement gains.
Because it not only challenges your students that may struggle with math, but it also enriches and challenges your higher level thinking students as well.
Given the opportunity, they really rise to the challenge.
They rise to the occasion and they do their best work when the expectations are high.
This engagement of the students is just exciting. They want to keep doing it even after math time.
When the authors developed the program, they set out to meet several goals. The goals of Project M Squared are to foster inquiry, to engage primary students in critical thinking, problem solving, and communication activities, to develop reasoning and communication skills related to geometry and measurement, to develop a deep conceptual understanding, to support young students' real-world experiences, and to increase mathematics achievement of all kindergarten through grade 2 students. This program meets and exceeds these goals. In 2000, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics published this chart with a recommendation showing approximately how much time should be spent in each of the 5 strands of mathematics in the pictured grade bands. As you can see, in the pre-K through grade 2 band, approximately half the time spent teaching math should focus on geometry and measurement. For this reason, these were the first units written. This slide shows the units available in Mentoring Young Mathematicians. There are 3 geometry units, 3 measurement units, and the newest additions, 2 units that address number. The units with the meerkats are designed for 2nd grade. Those with Emmy and Zany are for 1st grade, and units with the frogonauts are intended for kindergarten. All units are based on NCTM standards, the curriculum focal points, and Common Core state standards in mathematics. One of my favorite characteristics of mentoring young mathematicians is the use of characters in each level. In both kindergarten units, the children meet Frida and Fonzie. Frida is a frogonaut in outer space at the Lily Pad space station, and Fonzie is the lead frogonaut on Earth. The grade 1 characters are Emmy and Zany. Emmy stands for Isabella, the mathematical inventor, and her sidekick Zany live in the Amazon rainforest in Peru. In grade 2, we have the detective duo, Drew and Teller. They are meerkats who live in the Kalahari Desert in Africa. In each lesson, the class receives a fax from the characters asking for their help in doing a project. This gives the students a reason to immerse themselves in the activities and make mathematical discoveries. Students then communicate their findings back to the characters before receiving a new fax and a new task. This is a highly effective way to engage the students throughout each unit. The students love the characters and they want to support their projects completely. Therefore, there is a strong language arts component woven into Project M Squared. These components are speaking, listening, and writing. To aid students in developing speaking and listening skills, these scrolls are introduced in the introductory lesson in each unit. Students model these roles and discuss how they support everyone's learning. These can be used throughout the school day, not only in math, but in all disciplines. The scrolls pictured are from the kindergarten units. Sets are specific to each grade. To facilitate thinking and oral communication, talk moves are implemented. The talk moves are repeat and check. In repeat and check, the teacher or another student restates an idea, then verifies if it was an accurate interpretation. In add on, the teacher asks a student to expand upon the idea already stated. Agree or disagree and tell why. After the topic of discussion has been established, the teacher has the students analyze ideas and defend their positions using mathematical reasoning. In think time, the teacher waits to call on a student after a question has been posed or wait for a student who has been called on to respond. Students need time to process. We have to allow them that time. Partner talk is when students are given opportunities to discuss their ideas with a partner before participating in the class discussion. We want to move classroom discussion from teacher to student and student back to teacher to involving all students. For more information on the talk moves, see the on-demand webinar on oral communication. To connect the oral communication to written communication, Project M Squared uses the talk frame. This is an example of a talk frame. Each lesson has what's called a Think Deeply question. This question captures the essence of the lesson. It's what you want the students to get out of the lesson. In the Think section, students restate the Think Deeply question in their own words. Then students offer their ideas responding to the question. These ideas are then recorded. The "We understand" statement is a complete sentence or two that summarizes correct student ideas to answer the original question. For more information on the talk frame, view the on-demand webinar on written communication. In written communication, we're looking for use of mathematical vocabulary, clarifying the argument, using details to support the reasoning, and possibly including a table, chart, or other appropriate math symbols. Here's the writer scroll. These tips help guide students in their writing. This is an example of a Think Deeply from the Grade 2 Geometry unit. Help us tell the difference between a cube and a square. The student's response is, a cube is fat and a square is flat. A cube has 6 faces and a square has 4 sides. A cube is 3-dimensional and a square is 2-dimensional. A 3-dimensional shape is fat and a 2-dimensional shape is flat. And then the student supports his writing with some illustrations. This child clearly understands the difference between a cube and a square. So what are the components in this program? For kindergarten, there is a teacher's guide, corresponding student mathematicians journals, and a center guide so that the teacher can have ongoing math centers that support the mathematics in the unit as well as the space topic. In grades 1 and 2, each unit has a teacher guide, corresponding student mathematicians journals, and a scrapbook used to introduce the unit as well as the speaker and listener roles. Word wall cards are available at all levels. In Project M Squared, each vocabulary card has a matching illustration. These cards can be displayed in the classroom on a word wall and also lend themselves to a variety of activities to reinforce math vocabulary. Pictured here are examples of hint cards. Each lesson has several hint cards and are designed to move the students' thinking forward and allow them to successfully engage in the investigation. These are one way to differentiate instruction to meet the needs of students. Another way to differentiate is through the Think Beyond cards. These cards challenge students who have demonstrated mastery of the objectives and from mathematically talented students who grasp the concepts quickly. Manipulative kits specific to each grade level and each unit are also available. These kits contain manipulatives needed to do the activities in the unit, as well as some consumable materials. Some examples of manipulatives found in the kits are 3-dimensional tangrams, snap cubes, color tiles, pattern blocks, measuring tapes, and many other things. This brings us to the Project M Squared unit features. The teacher guide contains many pieces to help support the teacher in his or her instruction. There are helpful prior experiences so that students can have the necessary foundation to build upon. Suggested unit pacing helps the teacher's planning. The materials list lists all materials and supplies needed for each lesson. The unit test and rubric can be used as both a pre- and a post-test to show growth. A unit celebration gives ideas for a culmination activity, frequently involving families, thus fostering the home and school connection. The family letter is available in both English and Spanish to inform parents what their students will be learning. Checkups found at the end of each chapter are just one of several means of assessment in the unit. At the back of each unit, there is a section that contains many helpful resources. and you can just look at this list to see all the things that are there to help support the teacher. Each lesson in Mentoring Young Mathematicians has features formatted to assist the teacher. In brief is a short overview of activities in the lesson. Mathematical focus clearly states where the focus of the lesson should remain. The objectives list the important math ideas in terms of student understanding. Mathematical language defines and often illustrates important math terms and concepts used in the lesson. The materials list everything needed in the lesson by what the student needs, what the teacher needs, and the supplies needed. The next part is lesson development and is broken down into anywhere from 2 to 5 parts. Each part tells the setting needed, whether it's whole class, small groups, partners, or individuals for writing assignments. It also states the pacing guide, the time required for that part. You can also see the many illustrations provided for the teacher and teacher tips. In this lesson, each of the 4 parts requires 60 minutes. Part 4 is the Think Deeply question. This would be class discussion, using the talk frame, and students writing their responses on the Think Deeply page. Following each lesson is a quick look. This is a shortened form of the lesson written as a set of steps for each part. It is at the end of each lesson so that the teachers will first read the more detailed lesson. The longer form better explains the mathematics, provides tips and illustrations, uses examples and non-examples, and provides so much more information that will increase the depth of the lesson and better engage students. I strongly encourage all teachers to read the longer version of the lesson several times if needed. It's their students who will benefit. Now let's look at the geometry progression. Kindergarten focuses on 3-dimensional shapes. This is what children first come to know in their environment. Grade 1, the focus is on 2-dimensional shapes, and Grade 2 relates the 2-dimensional and the 3-dimensional shapes. This slide goes a little deeper to show what's covered in geometry in kindergarten. In the introductory lesson, students name and describe the attributes of various 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional shapes. In Chapter 1, they compose and decompose 3-dimensional shapes. Chapter 2 has students locating and navigating positions, and in Chapter 3, they investigate spatial orientation and visualization using 2-dimensional shapes. In first grade, the introductory lesson for geometry has students recognizing and describing shapes. In Chapter 1, they compose and decompose shapes. Chapter 2, students sort shapes by their attributes, and Lesson 3 focuses on congruence and symmetry. In the second grade geometry unit, the students recognize and describe the properties of shapes in the introductory lesson. In Chapter 1, they investigate symmetry and tessellations. Chapter 2, students explore the relationships between 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional shapes. And in Chapter 3, students compose and decompose shapes and also look at perspective. You'll notice that in all 3 of these levels, the students remain at the descriptive level of in Van Healy's levels of geometric thinking. In measurement, these are some of the topics that are addressed. Conservation of measurement, using equal size units, iteration of units, the inverse relationship, and transitivity. So in kindergarten, the introductory lesson, children investigate and describe various measurement tools. In Chapter 1, kindergartners explore the attribute of length. In Chapter 2, they explore area. and in Chapter 3 they explore the concepts of volume and capacity. In Grade 1, in the introductory lesson, students are exploring measurement tools, the attributes being measured, and the process of measurement. Chapter 1, students explore weight. In Chapter 2, students measure area, and in Chapter 3, they measure length. In Grade 2, students review measurement concepts, particularly the accumulation of distance in the introductory lesson. Chapter 1 focuses on length. Chapter 2 involves measuring area, and Chapter 3 introduces capacity. At each level, students are going deeper into the measurement concepts. So let's look at a lesson. This lesson is rectangles and triangles together. It's found in the Grade 1 Geometry unit, Exploring Shape Games, Geometry with Emmy and Zany. It's Lesson 1 in Chapter 1. Look at the mathematical language found in this first grade lesson. Wow, pretty impressive. In Part 1 of the lesson, students compose shapes using triangles and rectangles. They identify the attributes of shapes. They determine similarities and differences between shapes, and they enhance spatial visualization. Each part has an activity that we will look at briefly. In Part 1, students are engaged at folding and cutting centers. In Part 2, they're composing shapes. Part 3, they are labeling shapes. In Part 4, they play a game called Grupo. And in Part 5, they answer the Think Deeply question. In the introductory lesson, students observed and described geometric attributes and properties. They identified and named geometric shapes. So this lesson begins with the class receiving a fax from Emmy and Zany. Dear student mathematicians, thanks for all your help with Zany Lingo. We are working on 2 new geometry games. One is called Grupo and the other is called What Happened? To play the games, we need sets of shape cards. Each card should have a shape that is made up of other shapes put together. Our problem is we don't have the shape cards. We need someone to help us make the cards, and we only have paper squares. We hope you can help us. If you can help, then we will teach you the rules for Grupo and What Happened. You'll be able to use the cards you designed, and we will have 2 terrific new games. Please help us. Your geometric friends, Emmy and Zany. Now the students are motivated and are anxious to help Emmy and Zany. Part 1 is folding and cutting centers. Using 3-inch square post-its, students decompose squares by folding them in half into triangles and long rectangles. Then they cut some of the long rectangles and triangles in half so that they now have piles of 4 shapes: large and small triangles, large rectangles, and small squares. Using 2 to 4 pieces, students compose a new shape. The new shape is glued down and sticky dots are put on each vertex. The shape is described by identifying the number of sides, the number of vertices, and the number and shapes of the pieces of which it is composed. It is identified by its correct name. This shape has 6 sides. This shape has 6 vertices. This shape is made of 4 triangles. This shape is a hexagon. In Part 3 of the lesson, groups sort their shapes and classify them by identifying them by the number of sides and the number of shapes with which they are made. The results are posted for all to see. Then the class receives another fax from Emmy and Zany. Dear student mathematicians, last night we were able to look at the shapes you created and they were terrific. So we worked all night and made small cards that match some of them so you can play a new game. You gave us so many good ideas. We even made some of our own. Thanks for all of your hard work. Can you match our cards to the shapes you made? After you match the cards, then play Grupo. We hope you like it. Your Grupo friends, Emmy and Zany. So Emmy and Zany have used the shapes the students made in Part 2 to create a game, Grupo. This slide shows cards made with shapes in Activity 2. These are used in playing the game. The Grupo game rules are as follows. A team consists of 2 students working together. So there are 2 teams and a dealer needed to play the game. The dealer deals out 9 of the Grupo cards in a 3x3 array. The teams then take turns making groups of 2 cards that have 4 of these things that are the same. They can have the same number of sides, the same number of vertices, the same shape name, the same number of shapes used in the shape on the card, or the same kind of shapes used in the shape on the card. Once a team has decided that they have found a pair, the opposing team must agree if they are correct or not. If they are correct, they remove the 2 cards that made the pair from the array, and the dealer lays down 2 new cards. Now the other team takes their turn in the same manner. If they can't make a pair, they pass. If neither team can make a pair, the dealer removes all the 9 cards and puts down 9 new cards. Students play until there are no cards left. The team with the most cards wins. It's helpful for the students to have this checklist. That way it's easy for them to see what they're looking for. Remember, they have to have 4 of these things the same in both cards. The same number of sides, the same number of vertices, the same shape name, the same number of inside shapes, or the same kind of inside shapes. Look at these cards. Can you find a matching pair? There's more than one. Well, shapes 4 and 5 are alike in 4 different ways. Shapes 1 and 3 are alike in 4 different ways, and there are several other pair. The math begins when the game ends. The game is over, so now we're going to talk about the math. Now comes the think deeply. Circle one of the cards, either card A or card B. Make a shape that is like the card you circled in 4 ways. Glue it below. Then on the second page, it asks 2 questions. How is your shape like the shape on the card? How is your shape different from the shape on the card? Remember, classroom discussion and the talk frame precede students doing their independent writing. Here's Irina's response. She circled shape A on the left. Then she constructed the shape that you see on the top right. And she wrote that her shape was like the shape on the card because it has 4 sides, it has 4 vertices, it is a quadrilateral, it has triangles. When asked how is your shape different from the shape on the card, Irina responded, mine has 4, it has 3 shapes. I believe she's talking about the number of shapes used to construct her shape. Irina has good vocabulary, she has correct ideas, and a clear description. I think it's pretty impressive for a first grader. Remember, there are hint cards and think beyond cards to help the teacher differentiate to meet the needs of a wide range of students. And that's a quick walkthrough of a Project M Squared lesson. For more information, you can visit the website projectm2.org